What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Magic the Conversation. Today we are talking about the 20th set known as Prophecy. Prophecy came out on June 5th of the year 2000. The mana symbol is some crystals. Um, as far as the story goes, it kind of does not really fit the Mercadian Mask uh, storyline at all, because in Mercadian Mask we had the continuation of the Tempest block, what Gerard was doing, and hit the crew of the Weatherlight. They crash landed in Mercadia, and they ended up finding out that Mercadia was housing Phyrexian airships. But the Weatherlight crew escaped and were able to make it back to Dominaria. Meanwhile, on Phyrexia and Wrath, Volrath had returned after failing to get his revenge on Gerard, but his throne was already occupied and he was replaced by Krovax. That was the Nemesis set storyline, and Prophecy completes the Mercadian Mask block. But the storyline for Prophecy doesn't have anything really to do with any of the aforementioned characters. In this, the super barbarian race known as the Keldons, which Urza's ex-laboratory um, associate had previously engineered years before to be a superior race. The Keldons are declaring war on the land of Jamora, and Jamora is one of the three city-states that was under protection of Teferi. Teferi is the Time Mage that survived the cataclysms at the Tolarian Academy from the Urza's block set. And at first he's reluctant, but he he cannot fight the Keldon force on his own, even though he is a powerful mage up to this point. So he does get the help of Master Baron and Rain, who also were at the Tolarian Academy. Rain was the Chancellor, and Baron was the High Wizard there. They Teferi does ask for Urza's help, but Urza says, "I can't waste my resources on this petty war going on when he has to prepare for the Phyrexians." Teferi disagrees with this wholeheartedly and vows to cut ties with Urza from this point, never to help him again. Uh, as far as on the Keldon side, the leader of the Keldons is a female barbarian named Latilla. She enlists the help of a vampire named Greel, and Greel actually turns out to be Phyrexian in disguise, and he is using the Keldon barbarians as a means to an end to secretly infiltrate Jamora and the rest of the lands around the continent of Dominaria to further the Phyrexian invasion. During the fight, Rain is killed by Greel, and then Baron obliterates Latilla and Greel himself. But at that point, the land has already been poisoned by Greel, and the Phyrexian invasion begins to ensue afterwards. And now we will go over the cards themselves. Starting off, we have Abolish. You may discard a plains from your hand instead of paying Abolish's mana cost. You can destroy an artifact or an enchantment at instant speed. As war raged on, the young mages became more direct in their tactics, often at great cost. Agent of Shaku, 2 mana mercenary, pay 2, sacrifice land, target creature gets power +2 until end of turn. Go ahead, take it. You'll be so very powerful. What harm can it do? He is a mercenary, so mercenaries are repeated in this as well as rebels too. Alexi's Cloak. You can play it at any time as an instant. Enchanted creature cannot be the target of spells or abilities. Doesn't look like much, does it? Lexi the Zephyr Mage. This would help in a pinch if your creature is about to be destroyed by a spell or ability. You can flash the cloak on them, and then that will cancel the spell ability targeting your creature. Here's Alexia the Zephyr Mage, 5-mana 3/3 Spell Shaper. She a wizard? No, she's just a human Spell Shaper. You have to pay X and a blue and discard 2 cards from your hand. Return X target creatures to their owner's hand. Each color gets a legendary Spell Shaper, and I do believe you have to discard 2 cards for each one mentioned. The Keldons didn't know her name, but they still cursed her in battle. From what I remember, I think Lexi is probably one of the best ones from that cycle. As long as you have the mana and the cards to discard. Next up is Aura Fracture. It's an enchantment. You can sacrifice a land to destroy target enchantment. Jamora's Rhystic Mages treat magic as their guardian, uprooting unwanted spells as bothersome weeds. Avatar of Fury costs 8, and it's a 6/6 flying. It has the fire-breathing ability that Sheevan Dragon originally had. If an opponent controls 7 or more lands, Avatar of Fury costs 6 mana less to play, meaning he'll only cost 2 red. Now, the avatars, each color gets an avatar as well. The avatars were probably the best cards in the set. Prophecy has been known as probably the second worst set as a whole compared to the rest of the expansions. Homelands is the community's voted #1 worst set of all time, and then the community has agreed that Prophecy is the second worst set by design. Even Mark Rosewater himself, the head lead designer, he admitted that to himself, that Prophecy was a disjointed set from the Mercadian block as a whole. But I remember when my friends, because I was still in high school around this time, the avatars were highly sought after. The red one being probably the mid-level, but the black ones, which we will get to very shortly, was the best one. Avatar of Hope, a 4/9 with flying, may block any number of creatures. If you have 3 life or less, she costs 6 less to play. Probably the worst one of the 5. Because if you're at 3 life or less, yeah, she might help, being able to block any number of creatures. But the 9 toughness can only take her so far. And if you're at 3 life or less, there are a lot of ways that your opponent can still kill you, even if you have something that can block any number of creatures. But she's not a bad card, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying compared to her peers from the cycle, she's the worst of the 5. Avatar of Might, 8/8 trample. If an opponent controls at least 4 more creatures than you do, he costs 6 less to cast. And it's 2 mana for an 8/8 trample with no drawback. Great. 8 mana for an 8/8 trample with no drawback. Still a great card. The artwork looks a little weird. Like, he's got, the teeth are funny looking. But avatars, I mean, they kind of can be anything, really. They're not really a substantial being, so they could be of any design. They're almost like an elemental. Old World Micmac, welcome back again. Glad to see you here. Avatar of Will. If an opponent has no cards in their hand, Avatar of Will costs 6 less to play. It's a 5/6 with flying. I like that she has a dodo bird, I think. A dodo bird is on her collar or something like that. I don't know. Probably the most abstract artwork of the avatars. Here's the best one, I think, by far. Avatar of Woe. 6/5. If there are 10 or more creature cards total in all graveyards, Avatar of Woe costs 6 less to play. Avatar of Woe can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and black creatures, so she has the fear keyword. Tap her to destroy target creature. It cannot be regenerated. I think this is one of the first black creatures that is able to destroy any creature regardless of its coloring, regardless of if it being tapped or untapped or not. I know Royal Assassin can destroy any creature, but the creature has to be tapped. So that's one drawback for Royal Assassin. And then a lot of the other assassin creatures could only target non-black creatures. That's one reason what made Avatar Wolf so powerful. And because it was total graveyards for her mana cost, I think she was one of the most common to be played at her reduced cost. The artwork is really good too. She's carrying it looks like a Phyrexian Scythe, and definitely, I think, and a lot of you would probably agree that she's the best of the 5 avatars in the set, and currently my favorite card in the set. Barbed Field. This set did get a lot of, or I think a cycle of enchant lands. Enchant land has tap it. This land deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Wherever they went, the Keldons transformed the land into a weapon. Another cycle. The set did have a lot of cycles. Where the winds, each color got a very expensive sorcery, but it would be it would do something really well. Blessed Wind, target player's life total becomes 20. The 4th Wind of Ascension is Anoider, defying the worthy. This could be used on your opponent. If your opponent is playing a life gain deck and they're at like 250 life, you could cast Blessed Wind and their life total will go down to 20. If your life total is at 1, you can cast this on yourself and bring your life total back up to 20. Bog Elemental. 5 mana for a 5/4 elemental, protection from white. At the beginning of your upkeep, you must sacrifice it unless you sacrifice a land. When the Bog walks, the wise run. Rest of the Bog Witch. Fortunately, not a good card. Even if it's up against white, it has the drawback that you have to keep sacrificing a land. Bog Glider is a 1/1 mercenary with flying. He has tap, sacrifice a land, search your library for a mercenary card, mana cost 2 or less, and put it into play, then shuffle your library afterwards. In the many mercenary and rebel decks that I've seen, I've never seen anybody use this card. Because you have to sacrifice a land, it's like really crappy for what he does. And you can only find mana 2 or less. There are other mercenaries that you only have to pay mana, and then you get the 2 or less. And he's a 1/1, making him even worse. Branded Brawlers. They only cost 1 red for a 2/2. They can attack if the defending player has an untapped land. They cannot block if you control an untapped land. The Sword or the Lash. Choose. Cool the Keldon Whip Sergeant. Brutal Suppression. World Enchantment. Activated abilities on rebels cost an additional sacrifice land to play. They no longer care about their own suffering. Show them something worse. Attila the Keldon Overseer. This was a creature hosing card that definitely slowed rebels down in their tracks. But as good as rebels were, I don't think they ever really got out of hand to the point where people were sideboarding that card. But I was not involved in the Magic scene during the set's release. I didn't get back into Magic until I would have to say the next block is when I dipped back into the game. But that's another story for another day. Calming Verse. Destroy all enchantments you don't control. Then if you control an untapped land, destroy all enchantments you control. The Chattering Forest fell silent as the otherworldly song began. That would be a recurring theme in this set too. It cared about whether your opponent had any untapped lands, if you had any untapped lands. Celestial Convergence. Celestial Convergence comes into play with 7 omen counters on it. Beginning of your upkeep, remove an omen counter from it. If there are no more counters left on Celestial Convergence, the player with the highest life total wins the game. If 2 or more players are tied for the highest life total, the game is a draw. Even though the set is bad as a whole, Celestial Convergence is a great card if you have really aggressive life gain. I built a life gain deck with aggressive life gain, as I just said, and I didn't really care about attacking. I did have Sarah Avatar in it, so that was another win condition. But I had 4 copies of Celestial Convergence, and that was like my main source of winning the game with that deck. Hey, Vinny, will you pay the 1 for Rhystic Study? Yeah, we'll talk about Rhystic Study. Probably the best card in the set as a whole. Hey, Carlos, that's all right. It's okay that you're not that if you forgot, no big deal, no worries. I was a little late. I was supposed to start at 6, but I didn't start until like 17 after. Chilling Apparition, 3 mana, 1/1 ghost, has regeneration. Whenever the Chilling Apparition deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card from their hand. Mortal Minds shrivel at its touch. It doesn't have flying, so I don't like it. I'm spoiled by Hypnotic Spectre. Chimeric Idol. It looks like a turtle machine. Tap all lands you control. Chimeric Idol becomes a 3/3 artifact creature until end of turn. After a Chimeric Idol attacked them, the Keldon smashed all unfamiliar statues. If your lands are already tapped, then you could get the best use out of this card. Otherwise, you would have to keep spanning, using a bunch of other cards and stuff beforehand. And it would tap all your lands, so you won't have anything to do on your opponent's turn. Demonic Vibes, what's up? How are you doing? Welcome in. No, you didn't disturb my stream at all, Carlos. Not at all. Next card, next page. Demonic Vibes is trying to sell some cards for another box. Still no Ulamog. Are you talking about Modern Masters 3? Modern Masters? Modern Horizons? Citadel of Pain. At the end of each player's turn, Citadel of Pain deals X damage to that player, where X is the number of untapped lands he or she controls. Battle is our religion, this fortress is our temple. Quote from Latilla the Keldon Overseer. I guess the only color this would really hurt would be blue, since they are the number 1 color that leave their lands untapped for counter spells. Other than that, people are just gonna tap all their lands. My Vibe says, yep, Modern Horizons 3 collector boxes, 3 down with no Defiler. Carl says, anyway, he wanted to send you the link for the comic book I'm writing. I would like some constructive feedback. Oh, definitely. I will definitely give you... I did see your story, but I did not read all of it yet. So the topic here today, Demonic Vibes, I'm reviewing the Prophecy set. I go by card for card, I review the artwork on it, I read what it does, I talk about if I've used it, what combos I've seen it done with, seen them used with. That's what my Magic streams have been overall. We started with the core set. I've skipped the reprinted sets like 4th edition, 5th edition. I normally just do 1 a week, but I'm going to try to do where I do 1 major set, the set that starts a block, and then the next week I'll do the 2 minor sets, because that was the pattern Magic has followed for many years, but it has recently changed, but we'll get to that in the future. Next card, Coastal Hornclaw, 5 mana, 3/3 bird, sacrifice a land. The Coastal Hornclaw gains flying until end of turn. I assume this bird needs to make a destructive run in order to lift off the ground. You can see him kicking up all that dirt. Jamoran farmers fear 3 things above all else: droughts, floods, and Hornclaws. I fear its mana cost and how bad it is. Thank you, Old World Micmac. Yeah, the flavored, there were so many things that drew me to Magic the Gathering. And the flavor text was a major Well, you gotta hurricane proof the house and get any bugs off the floor. Y'all have a great. Oh, demonic vibes. I do hope that you and your family and your neighbors will all be safe from the upcoming bad weather. Do be careful, and I do appreciate you popping in to say hello. Ooh, I forgot about this card. Coffin Puppets. 5 mana, 3/3 zombie. Sacrifice 2 lands. Return Coffin Puppets to the battlefield. Place ability only during your upkeep and only if Coffin Puppets is in your graveyard and only if you control a swamp. The ground won't accept them. This is not a bad card, I think. There are better zombies in the game now, so they might be a little outdated, but I would still use them in a zombie deck for a casual zombie deck anyway. In late game, if you have lands to sacrifice, then by all means, you're always guaranteed to have a 3/3 out. And they don't come into play tap either. The only downside is you can only do it during your upkeep. I don't know what this is. I've never seen this card before. Is this an additional artwork for Coffin Puppets? It looks nothing like what it's supposed to. Regardless, we'll move on. Copperleaf Angel, 5 mana, 2/2 Angel with flying, artifact Angel. Tap, sacrifice X lands, put X+1/+1 counters on Copperleaf Angel. When Sarah made angels, people called her a goddess. My angels are far superior to hers. Latilla the Keldon Overseer. I don't even know she made angels. But I've never seen this card used. I think it's mana cost, and nobody wants to really sacrifice in a set where you constantly have to sacrifice lands. I would have hated to draft this set, honestly, with all the sacrifice land issues that it had. Darba, 4 mana, 5/4 beast. Is it a bird beast? It should be. Yeah, it is a bird beast. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Darba unless you paid 2 green mana. Legend has it the Darba gave up its wings in return for an extra stomach. Have I ever read any of the Magic the Gathering novels back in the day? I have every Magic the Gathering novel printed, and I've read them all, and I still have them all to this day. It almost depressed me, Micmac, when they stopped printing the novels and just went to either web comics or webisodes. Because I was really invested in just the whole product. When Fat Packs used to come with all the boosters and the novel and the dice and the little catalog that came with it, I loved Fat Packs. That was my favorite Magic product to buy every time a new set came out. So when they discontinued the books, it did sadden me as a whole. But yes, I do still have all my novels to this day. And I do plan on rereading them too. Death Charmer, 3 mana, 2/2. What is it? A worm mercenary now? That's funny. Whenever Death Charmer deals combat damage to a creature, that creature's controller loses 2 life unless they pay 2 mana. Oh yeah, I remember Duelist too. They had some great articles. I liked when they put little speech bubbles on the cards. It was always entertaining. It vents the chill of the grave. Just a regular mercenary. Here's the blue wind, denying wind for 9 mana. Search target player's library for up to 7 cards and remove them from the game. Then that player shuffles their library. The third wind of Ascension is Eliminator, clearing the Keld's path to victory. I even have there was an anthology series of Magic, like the Creatures of Magic, or no, it was called Monsters of Magic, Colors of Magic, and it was a bunch of short stories that were just from the Magic world. I remember one was like a boy and his Atog. That was an interesting story. From what I remember, I think Denying Wind's probably the weakest of the winds in this set. Despoil. 4 mana, destroy target land. Its controller loses 2 life. Nothing could grow where the vile smoke had been, and no one could breathe it and live. Black having land destruction in a set that cares about lands. Destructive, for lack of a better word. Devastate. 5 mana, destroy target land. Ooh, of course red would have that too. Devastate deals 1 damage to each creature and player. You're willing to die for your homeland. I'm willing to kill for it. Attila the Keldon Overseer. Well, it's definitely not a wildfire. The wildfire affects all players, where Devastate only hits 1 land, but does 1 damage to each creature player. I think Devastate should do 2 instead of 1. It's not as devastating as the name implies. Diving Griffin. 3 mana, 2/2 flying with vigilance to outrace a griffin. It's a Kapamu expression meaning to do the impossible. You can see this griffin. If griffin is diving on this Keldon, he will be eaten. This is probably my favorite griffin in Magic, just because of the artwork. And it's not a bad griffin. I think a lot of griffins in Magic suffer from being too mana cost heavy, and their power and toughness doesn't justify it. But this one, 3 mana for a 2/2 flying vigilance, I think is fair enough. Dual Nature, 6 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature card comes into play, its controller puts a creature token into play that's a copy of that creature. If a creature leaves play, remove all tokens with the same name as that creature from the game. If Dual Nature leaves play, remove all tokens created with it from the game. It helps your opponent too, so I don't like it. You would have to build your deck heavily around it in order for it to get the most use out of it. Elephant Resurgence. For 2 mana, each player puts a green elephant token into play. These creatures' power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in their controller's graveyards. Everyone kind of gets a Lurgoyf. I've never seen this card. I don't like it either. Well, I guess if your opponent doesn't have a graveyard, then the creature's just gonna die. They get nothing. So if you build your deck around having a graveyard, and if you play like Tormod's Crypt and remove their graveyard from the game, then you definitely get a lot of usefulness out of it. But I've never seen it. Endbringer's Revel. 3 mana enchantment. Pay 4, return target creature card from your graveyard to its owner's hand. Any player can use this ability, but only anytime he or she could play a sorcery. First Death, then Shaku. So I've never seen this card, and I wish I had earlier, but Shaku Endbringer, this card pays homage to that. I think Shaku Endbringer was either in it was in the Mirage block. I want to say maybe Weatherlight or Visions. And here's a statue of her, or it might even be her. I can't tell. No, I think it's a statue, and they're doing a ritual. You can see all the demonic spirits. So I think that's pretty cool. Entangler, 4 mana, or a enchanted creature may block any number of creatures. I put this on Chow Mano, where all damage dealt to him is prevented, and kind of have an infinite blocker. Even though he couldn't block for me, that was his only downfall. Tell me again, said Latilla, raising her fist. How does one woman hold back an entire Keldon platoon? Well, I won't want to mess with this. Take this upside the head. I don't think you'll live. Excavation. Oh, they got diving suits on. That's cool. 2 mana, pay 1, sacrifice the land, draw a card. Any player may pay this ability. Oh, I was gonna be like, oh, this is really good, and then I read any player may play this ability. Then my hopes were dashed. There are secrets out there begging to be rediscovered. We just need to look in the right places. Furry the Planeswalker. Excise. From white and X, remove target attacking creature from the game unless its controller pays X. Creation is no great feat. Anything you make, I can unmake in a heartbeat. Alexi the Zephyr Mage. This being is just being sucked into nothingness. Vault Riders, 3 mana 2/2 soldiers. Sacrifice the land. Vault Riders get power +2 and first strike until end of turn. You can only use this ability only once each turn. They turn geological upheaval into tactical advantage. Okay, I guess. Fenstalker, 4 mana, 3/2. Fenstalker can't be blocked except by artifact and black creatures as long as you don't have any untapped lands. As silent as a shadow and just as hard to flee. Another, a meh card. Artwork's okay, but I thought he was a mercenary. I could swear there's some mercenaries that look like this. Fickle Ifrit, 4 mana for a 5/2. If it attacks or blocks, flip a coin at the end of combat. If you lose the flip, an opponent gains control of Fickle Ifrit. Flame chooses its own course. Since we are back on the island of Jamora, where the Mirage Block takes place, they did have a lot of Ifrits, and this is one of them. Looks like he ensnared a cow with his tentacles. Flame Shot for 4. You may discard a mountain instead of paying its mana cost. Deal 3 damage. Divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. I've never seen the card. Flay. So here's Greel, the Phyrexian vampire that was helping Latilla, but he was, of course, helping the Phyrexians overall. Target player discards a card at random from his or her hand, and that player discards another card at random from their hand unless they pay 1 colorless mana. The Keldons would never admit it, but Greel unsettles them too. It's no Hymn to Turok. Hymn to Turok is the best discard card of all time. Flowering Field is a white enchant land where you tap the land to prevent 1 damage dealt to target creature or player. Some lands are soothing and their peace can be felt in the soul. It is a peaceful looking land. Picking flowers, not worrying about what's going to happen when the Phyrexians arrive. Foil, another powerful counterspell because you can discard an island and another card from your hand instead of paying Foil's mana cost to counter target spell. Telling you, if blue has all tap lands, you still have to worry about them countering spells. Forgotten Harvest. It's an enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep. You may remove a land in your graveyard from the game. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Glittering Lion. 3 mana, 2/2 cat. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to it. Pay 3 mana. Until end of turn, the lion loses the prevent all damage ability. Any player can use this ability. The fact that your opponent can turn them off really diminishes their power. Glittering Lynx does the same thing, except the opponent just only has to pay 2 mana, and it's a 1/1. I like the idea, though. Here's Greel. He's the Black Spell Shaper legend. Is he a Phyrexian? No, he's a Horror Spell Shaper. I thought he was a vampire. Discard 2 cards from your hand. Target player discards X cards at random from his or her hand. You're Latilla's gift to me, and I always play with my presence. Yeah, and he ended up killing Rain, the Academy Chancellor. Greel's Caress. You may play Greel's Caress anytime you can play an instant. Enchanted creature gets power -3. Greel's Grin is far less loathsome than his touch. Looks like he caused this person to just rot. Like instantly, you can see his life force being drained. Gulf Squid, 4 mana, 2/2. When he comes into play, tap all lands target player controls. If I could capture the power it wastes, it would be, or if it could capture the power it wastes, it would be invincible. Well, it being a 2/2 does not really make it that powerful, especially if it's like a giant squid. Yep, the artwork is amazing. Even though the set itself isn't so good, a lot of Magic's artwork, I think the artwork was better back in the day than it is now, but it's still really good. Hazy, oh, here's the word again. Hazy homunculus. Homunculus? Embarrassing myself. I always pronounced it at hazy homunculus, but I don't know if that's how you say it. 2 mana, 1/1 illusion. I think it's a homunculus. It's unblockable as long as the defending player has an untapped land. They hide in dreams and whisper in faraway thoughts. 2 mana for 1/1 unblockable. Metatron soldiers just strictly blip. Homunculus. Homunculus. Thank you, Micmac. I'm not going to embarrass myself anymore. Homunculus. Homunculus. I'm going to say that. Homunculus, homunculus, homunculus. Thank you for correcting me. Heightened Awareness. 5 mana. When it comes into play, discard your hand. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. It startles me how alive one feels on the edge of death. Baron the Master Wizard. This card's great if you have nothing but lands in your hand. Shout out to Juan and Leah at the Juan and Juan podcast. Does he talk about magic on the podcast? Hollow Warrior, 4 mana, 4/4 golem. When Hollow Warrior cannot attack or block unless you tap an untapped creature you control. The cast is paid as attackers or blockers are declared. Though it moves like a living thing, anyone can tell it lacks a soul, not to mention mercy. It just looks weird. I guess it's like old school crewing, because you have to tap a creature in order to use it. It's an old school group. Infernal Genesis. 6 mana enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. Then they create X 1/1 minion creature tokens, where X is the card's converted mana cost. The artwork shows what would have been a bear, but the bear morphs into this monstrosity. Same thing happens. It would have been a tiger. The tiger mutates into this nightmare fuel. Brought to you by Ron Spencer. He talks about the homunculus. Cool. I'll have to give him a listen. Inflame deals 2 damage to each creature dealt damage this turn. Each creature dealt damage this turn. So each creature that already took damage takes 2 more damage. Wound, maim, kill. It's all the same to a Keldon. Jeweled Spirit, 5 mana, 3/3 flying. Sacrifice 2 lands. She gains protection from artifacts or from the color of your choice until end of turn. As he knows all the world completely, the world refuses him harm. He's but a child. Jural, the Empress of Beasts, 5 mana, 3/3. She's the green spell shaper legend, and she helped Teferi and Megara beat Karvik during the Mirage War. But in this set, you discard 2 cards from your hand, and until end of turn, all lands target player controls become 3/3 creatures that are still lands. I need no army. I have Jamora. Jurel's Favor. You may play it as an instant. You give a creature regeneration for a green and a colorless. War destroys, nature renews. Another quote from Jurel. After Prophecy, we're moving on to the Invasion block. It will be next week Invasion, and then the week after will be Plane Shift and Apocalypse. I am going in order of how the sets released. I am skipping like sets like Portal, Starter, all the white bordered sets that are full of reprints. But I will do, I think it was M10 that had, when they started making brand new cards in core sets, I will be reviewing those sets. Keldon Arsonist, 3 mana, 1/1. Pay a colorless, sacrifice 2 lands, destroy target land. Fields can be replanted, settlements can be rebuilt. Burn it all. Attila the Keldon Overseer. I like that Paleo Parente. You can see like this Keldon's. He's got his teeth biting his lower lip, and his fists are clenched. He is definitely enjoying all this destruction. Great artwork and facial expression of the character. Keldon Battle Wagon, 5 mana artifact creature with trample. It's a 0/3, cannot block. When it attacks, you must sacrifice it at end of combat. Tap an untapped creature you control. Keldon Battle Wagon gets power plus X until end of turn, where X is a tapped creature's power. and you can do it as many times as you want or I should say, however many creatures you have to tap, and you combine their power into one big battle wagon. The fact that it has trample means that you could probably get some damage through when you normally wouldn't be able to. But it does cost 5 mana, and if it's destroyed with a spell, then oh, it just got destroyed. Keldon Berserker, 4 mana, 2/3 soldier. When it attacks, if you don't control any untapped lands, it gets power +3 until end of turn, making him a 5/3. They fight beyond thought, beyond fear, beyond mercy. Keldon Firebarmers, 5 mana, 3/3 soldier. When they come into play, each player sacrifices all lands they control except for 3. There isn't enough of Jamora left to stand on. I will still claim it for Keld until the Keldon Overseer. Here's the red Spell Shaper and the leader of the Keldons. She discards 2 cards from her hand. Attila deals X damage to target creature or player. Everything around her suffers. Hadad the Kapamu soldier. I think she's probably the best Spell Shaper. Legend in the set. Attila's orders, you can play it as an instant. When an enchanted creature deals combat damage to defending player, you may have it destroy target artifact that player controls. Lesser Gargadon, 4 mana for 6/4. When it attacks or blocks, sacrifice a land. Too bad it doesn't have trample. Then it'd be worth it. Trod on by a Gargadon, a Kapamu expression meaning wiped out. Living Terrain, 4 mana, goes on a land. The land becomes a 5/6 tree folk. Keldons were accustomed to rugged terrain, but they never expected it to be aggressive. 4 mana for returning one of your lands into a 5/6 is pretty good. Majita's Boon. You may play Majita's Boon anytime. You could play an instant. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2. When the lion roars, his cubs grow stronger. I'm just saying. Oh wait, Majita is the best Spell Shaper legend. Majita the lion. I don't know if this is just a statue of him or if this is actually him. He might have war paint on. I'm not sure. What is this creature type? He's human. He almost looks like a golem. His hands look abnormally large. Anyway, you discard 2 cards from your hand, destroy all creatures except for himself. Those creatures cannot be regenerated. In the Jungle of War, there is always a lion. So yeah, he's definitely the best Spell Shaper legend of the 5, in my opinion, because he wipes the battlefield while the creatures can't be regenerated, and he will always survive that instance. Mana Vapors, for 2 mana, lands target player controls do not untap during their next untap step. The scent of magic can rob you of your senses, blinding you to the world. You could put this on Panoptic Mirror, and your opponent will never be able to untap their lands again. Marsh Boa, 1/1 snake for 1 green with Swamp Walk. Though a powerful constrictor, prefers simply to drown its prey. I assume this is like quicksand or... No, I guess it's swamp water. The snake looks amazing. The water, not so much. But I do love my snakes. Mercenary Informer. This is a rebel mercenary, so he's both. 3 mana, 2/1. Cannot be the target of black spells or abilities. Pay a white and 2. Put target mercenary card on the bottom of owner's library. Problem with rebels is that they so quickly reject authority. Some mercenary hoser for rebels. Mindbearer, 3 mana, 1/1 soldier. Tap him, sacrifice him, destroy target attacking creature. The Keldons may have explosive tempers, but I have explosives. Too bad you blow yourself up. Oh, I remember using this card a lot. Cosmic Seeds. How are you doing today? Welcome in. Target unblocked creature deals combat damage to its controller instead of you this turn. Enemies can be your weapons or your shields. Simply show them which they are. The Teachings of Zoe. Here it shows a soldier in this giant mech, and this wizard zapping him, causing the mech to reject its pilot. Um, what's so awesome about this card, if your opponent's attacking you with a 20/20 creature and you don't block it, you can cast Mirror Strike, and then instead of you taking the 20 damage, the creature's going to hit its controller and they take 20 damage instead. So this is a really good, powerful instant card for white if you're facing somebody that has large creatures. And I definitely guarantee you'll take them by surprise using this card, because this is not a well-known card. The Munga Worm, 4 mana for a 6/5. You cannot untap more than 1 land during your untap step. Cities have crumbled under its weight. You can see him constricting a castle. Unfortunately, it is a very bad drawback that you can only use 1 land a turn. The Nakaya Shade, 2 mana 1/1. Pay a black, Nakaya Shade gets +1/+1 until end of turn unless any player pays 2 colorless mana. Made strong by Reckless Magic, made horrid by Reckless Strife. Nantuko Shade would end up seeing play, or Nantuko Shade would be printed later on, I think 2 years after Nakaya Shade. Just a 2 mana shade with the shade ability without this drawback of having your opponent cancel its activation. But I think it's still pretty good. You do kind of force your opponent into a corner, whether they want to prevent the Nakaya Shade from growing larger, further preventing them from like casting any spells that they could normally cast on their own. Noxious Field, it's a black enchant land. Enchanted land has this land deals 1 damage to each creature and player. Ultimately, it became a 3-way battle. The lands attacked both armies. Here you can see how polluted this land is now, and I assume these are like jackals or hounds. I don't think they're going to survive after drinking this polluted water. Outbreak. I've never seen this card. 4 mana sorcery. You may discard a swamp from your hand instead of paying its mana cost. Choose a creature type. All creatures of that type get -1/-1 until end of turn. This plague chooses its victims. It's good against like small creature tribes like goblins and elves, but I think it should have been -2/-2 instead of -1/-1. Because a lot of the creatures, especially if they're 2/2, they're going to survive this. It would definitely destroy saplings if saplings don't have any global boosting of their stats. Overburden. I've never seen this card either. It's an enchantment for 2. Whenever a player puts a creature card into play, that player returns the land he or she controls to its owner's hand. Well, that would definitely slow down the game. The Kapama League knew what Keld refused to acknowledge. The land could support no more. Panic Attack. 3 mana sorcery. Up to 3 target creatures cannot block this turn. Sometimes everyone decides to go for help at the same time. That's funny. I'll call for help. That is some funny flavor text. Sometimes everyone decides to go for help at the same time. That's great. I've never seen. I think I have seen the card, but I forgot the flavor text. Pit Raptor, 4 mana, 4/3, flying, and first strike mercenary. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice the raptor unless you pay its mana cost of 2 and 2 black. But flying first strike for 4/3 is not bad. And it's a mercenary, so you can search for it in the late game when you can't afford to pay its mana cost. Plague Fiend, 2 mana, 1/1 insect. When Plague Fiend deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature unless its controller pays 2 colorless mana. So it's like Death Touch that your opponent could pay to cancel. As the strange plague ravaged Jamora, the fiends multiplied. Plague Wind, probably the best wind in this the block, this cycle. 9 mana, destroy all creatures you do not control. They can't be regenerated. The second Wind of Ascension is Reaver, slaying the unworthy. Just looks like somebody let out a gigantic fart, and it's blowing these soldiers away. probably rotting them too. But this is a game-winning card. If you have creatures on the battlefield, this wipes out your opponent's entire side of the field. Creatures can't be regenerated, ensuring you that you can attack without them having any creatures to block with, unless they're indestructible. Psychic Theft. Look at target player's hand, choose an instant or sorcery card from it, and remove it from the game. You can play the card as though it were in your hand, as long as it remains exiled. At the end of the turn, if you haven't played that card, return it to its owner's hand. The bad thing is you cannot play it for any color of mana. So if you're not playing the same colors as your opponent, you're not even going to be able to play the card. And I think they've changed that Magic at some point where they make a lot of cards like this where you like take a card from the top of your opponent's library or their hand, and that you can spend mana of any color, because I think they realized how limited Psychic Theft could be after that. Pygmy Razorback, 2 mana for a 2/1/4 with Trample. As a rite of passage, Pablo used taunt Razorbacks with long sticks, then flee. I want to make a pig deck, a board deck. Quicksilver Wall, a 1/6 for 3. Pay 4, return Quicksilver Wall to its owner's hand. Any player may play this ability. Og hit wall, Og no kill wall, Og hate wall. I guess this is Og trying to knock down the wall, but it's made of Quicksilver. It ain't going anywhere. The Rebel Informer, 3 mana 1/2. Rebel Informer can't be the target of white spells or abilities, and it has pay 3. Put a Rebel on the bottom of its owner's library. It's just like the Rebel, the Mercenary Informer. Polar opposites. Rethink. Counter target spell unless it's converted. Counter target spell unless its controller pays X, where X is its converted mana cost. Are you sure you want to do that? I just want to say, are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Definitely devastating against spells that have big mana costs. But I've never really seen people use that card, surprisingly. Reveille Squad, 4 mana 3/3 Rebel. If you are attacked, if Reveille Squad is untapped, you may untap all creatures you control. To arms, the Lion Roars. Really good card. Probably one of the best Rebels in the set to have. Meaning that you can commit more of your forces to attacking, and then if the opponent attacks in response, you'll have all your creatures being able to block. Kind of gives all your creatures vigilance if your opponent attacks. Rhystic Cave taps for 1 mana of any color unless any player pays 1. Ooh. All mages dip into the same well. Some are just in more of a hurry. Lexi the Zephyr Mage. And these crystals, pretty much the whole idea of these crystals is represented in the set here, in the expansion symbol. Rhystic Circle, pay 1. Any player may pay 1 colorless. If no one does, the next time the sorcerer of your choice would do damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. The circle buys time, an important commodity in battle. People are going to be paying mana up the wazoo with these next cards. Rhystic Deluge. Pay a blue, tap target creature unless its controller pays 1. I'll rain down on you with the power of magic itself, then we'll see who prevails. See, these birds can't even stay in the air, and this guy fell off his Kolos into this dark, non-transparent water. Rhystic Lightning deals 4 damage to target creature or player unless that creature's controller pays 2. If they do, the lightning only does 2 damage to the creature or player. Well, at least it still does damage. And it's not just 1 that they have to pay, it's 2. Rhystic Scrying, draw 3 cards, and if any player pays 2, discard 3 cards from your hand. The trick is to ask when no one's listening. That's funny. Rhystic Shield, creatures you control get +1 toughness until end of turn. They get an additional +2 until end of turn unless the player pays 2. A shield for 1 is good. A shield for everyone is even better. Rhystic Study, probably one of the best card in the set itself. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1 when they cast a spell. Friends teach you what you want to know. Enemies teach you what you need to know. Another great flavor text in the set. How much is it worth nowadays? This is probably one of the most. It's a common. I thought it was an uncommon. $40 for this common card, and I need to sell. I need to go through my collection because I know I have at least 4 of them. I think I only have 4 of them, unfortunately. I think I got rid of all my extras long ago. Rhystic Siphon, 5 mana. Unless target player pays 3 colorless, he or she loses 5 life and you gain 5 life. Mourn Wizards are linked together by magic, a bond that only the wicked dare exploit. I would just use Soul Feast instead of this card. Rhystic Tutor, unless any player pays 2, search your library for a card, put the card in your hand, then shuffle your library. Any lock can be undone, any secret revealed. Definitely not a demonic tutor, definitely not a vampiric tutor. Poor man's tutor is what I call that card. Ribbon Snake, 3 mana 2/3 snake with flying. You can see it has crystal wings. Pay 2, Ribbon Snake loses flying until end of turn. Any player may play this ability. All snakes slither, only this one soars. The artwork is great. The card itself is not. Ribcage Spider, 3 mana for a 1/4 with reach. Everything it sees it considers food, and with that many eyes, it's not liable to miss much. It's a weaker giant spider for 1 less power and 1 less mana. Ridgeline Rager, 3 mana 1/2. It has the fire breathing ability that Sheep Dragon has. While armies battle across Jamora, beasts stalk the high places looking for victims. I don't know if like this is its actual hand or if it's like can morph its hands like Flowstone. But I do like what the creature looks like overall, and mainly because of the artwork. And I've used this creature in my Bloodshot Cyclops Fire Breathing deck. I used the Ridgeline Rager more than I used Avatar Woe, so Ridgeline Rager gets my favorite card of the set so far. And we're almost near their end, so I think Ridgeline Rager is going to get the favorite. Root Cage, which is funny because a lot of commons don't really get favorites from mine. Mercenaries do not untap during their controller's untap step. This would really shut down Mercenaries. The Mintara Forest welcomes its enemies with a crushing embrace. Samite Sanctuary enchantment. Pay 2, prevent the next 1 damage that be dealt to target creature this turn. Any player can use this ability. Our war is against suffering, not against those who cause it. Samite Creed. Scoria Cat, 5 mana 3/3. It gets +3/+3 as long as you don't have any untapped lands. So 5 mana for a 6/6 if you tap out every turn, really good. Like a volcano, it too can erupt without warning. Search for survivors. Never seen this card. Shuffle your graveyard. An opponent chooses a card from it at random. If that card is a creature card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, remove it from the game. There is no rest for a Keldon. Well, this is really good if you only have 1 card in your graveyard. I'm sure players can set that up, but it's interesting for red. This might be red's only graveyard recursion card. Never knew it existed. Searing Wind, the red wind, deals 10 damage to target creature or player. Cost 9. The first Wind of Ascension is Forger, burning away impurity. I remember I had a few friends who had a deck where they would cast a spell. I think it was called like I can't remember now, but it says the next instant or sorcery you cast, you copy that spell, and then they would cast Searing Wind. So the first copy of Searing Wind will go off dealing 10 damage to a player, and then the copy would go off for free, and then it would deal an additional 10 damage to a player. And if they didn't have any life gain, then that's 20 damage right there, and they're dead. Sheltering Prayers for 1 white. Basic lands each player controls cannot be the target of spells or abilities as long as that player controls 3 or less lands. It matters not if the gods hear my prayers, Jamora does. This card was good against land destruction. Shield Dancer, 3 mana, 1/3 rebel. Pay a white and 2. The next time target attacking creature would deal combat damage this turn. No, the next time target attacking creature would deal combat damage to Shield Dancer this turn, that creature deals that damage to itself instead. The harder your strike, the stronger her defense. Shrouded Serpent, 7 mana for a 4/4. If he attacks, defending player may pay 4 mana. If they don't, the Shrouded Serpent is unblockable this turn. Many travelers have wandered into a fog only to find that it had teeth, claws, and an appetite. Where are the claws? It's a serpent. It's not supposed to have claws. Did they think it was a dragon? Silkcrawler, 3 mana, 3/3 beast. When it comes into play, tap all lands you control. If they could replenish the land instead of draining it, Jamara would be teaming with them. This looks like an alligator with no teeth, but I guess it has like one big tooth down at the bottom here. Cool concept. The card's okay. Snag. You may discard a forest from your hand instead of paying Snag's mana cost. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by unblocked creatures this turn. You can see this Keldon Barbarian. Oh, and he's got one behind him. They're stuck in the weeds. Soul Charmer. 3 mana, 2/2 rebel. When Soul Charmer deals combat damage to a creature, you gain 2 life unless that creature's controller pays 2. It's the opposite of Death Charmer. She seeks the warmth of the living. And looks like she's just around a bunch of snakes. A lot of coils here. Soul Strings. Pay black and X. Return 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand unless any player pays X. Everyone is manipulated. It's just more obvious with the dead. It's another good flavor text. Spiketail Drake. I'm sure Jameson would love this. Jameson loves this card. 5 mana, 3/3 flying. Sacrifice the Spiketail Drake to counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. The spell will have to wait, said Alexi, pointing up. Drakes. You see on their artwork, this wizard's attempting to defend himself with the spell, but the Drake has its spike tail activated, meaning the spell is not going to affect it. Great artwork by Michael Sutphin. Spiketail Hatchling. It's just like Spiketail Drake, but it just costs less and it's a 1/1 and it counters the spell unless controller pays 1. It dodges waves of water to prepare for waves of magic. Spitting Spider, 5 mana for a 3/5. Spitting Spider may block as though it had flying. You can sacrifice the land to deal 1 damage to each creature with flying. And you can see it has dragons in its web. I love my spiders too. Yeah, there's Jameson. I summoned him when all I had to do was talk about Drakes, and Jameson flew in. How you doing, Jameson? Spitting Spider would be my second favorite card in the set, just because how much I like my spiders. Oh, wait, okay. Ridgeline Rager, not my favorite card in the set. Spore Frog is my favorite card in the set. 1/1 for 1 green. You can sacrifice the Spore Frog to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. The end of 1 life is merely the beginning of thousands more. And the reason why I say that is food. Good. Yeah, you meant to say good instead of food. I had so many good games with Spore Frog. He saved me, or I should say, they saved me so many times. Because at any time, if your opponent likes attacking you for lethal damage, you can just pop your Spore Frog, and then no combat damage will be dealt. And I had ways of bringing creatures back from the graveyard. The artifact Lifeline, for instance, I had a deck where I would just sacrifice Spore Frog, and then at the end of the turn, Spore Frog would just return to my hand. I would recast it, or it would return to the battlefield, and every turn I could just keep preventing combat damage. And you can even attack with the frog. And who doesn't like frogs? I know there are people out there who doesn't like frogs, but Donato Giancola did great with the artwork. Spur Grappler, 3 mana for a 2/1. Spur Grappler gets +2/+1 as long as you don't have any untapped lands, which would mean you would be a 4/2. Grapplers hunt in packs, driving their victims over steep mountain cliffs. I don't know if this is a beak or a large nose. Creature looks funny. Squirrel Wrangler, 4 mana for a 2/2 druid. Pay 2, sacrifice a land, put 2 green squirrel tokens onto the battlefield. You can also pay 2 and sacrifice a land. All squirrels get +1/+1 until end of turn. Nod to Death, bad way to go. I guess a 1/of would be good in a squirrel deck. Steel Strength, 2 mana. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Another target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. With each grunt of pain from Haddad, Real's grin widened. I swear, I think in the story, in the book, he's a vampire because you can see his 2 fangs here. But they didn't give him that creature type in the game. Stormwatch Eagle. I forgot about this card. 4 mana for a 2/1 flying. Sacrifice the land. Return the eagle to its owner's hand. When eagles leave the sky, sailors leave the sea. As much as I like my birds, this bird still is trash. Sunken Field. The blue enchant land has tap, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. Probably the best of the 5 land enchantments now that I've read them all. The land is heavy with promise, the harvest ripe with betrayal. Sword Dancer. Pay double white, target attack creature gets -1 power until end of turn. Most weapons, or most soldiers think of the sword as a weapon. In the hands of the Zhao monks, swords were also the strongest of shields. And Sword Dancer, you can see everyone here took some arrows with their shields, but Sword Dancer just chopped every sword or every arrow that came their way. Yeah, having 4 means your opponent is in a bad spot trying to cast spells, especially early on. Task Mage Assembly. When there are no creatures in play, you have to sacrifice the Task Mage Assembly. Pay 2, Task Mage Assembly deals 1 damage to target creature. Any player can use this ability, but they only could do so as a sorcery, which means they can only do it on their turn. Thresher Beast. I forgot about this card. 5 mana 4/4. If Thresher Beast becomes blocked, the defending player sacrifices the land. It destroys everything in its path, including the path itself. This is an ugly, fat, grotesque beast. It kind of reminds me of Jabba the Hutt with tentacles, but I do like the action and the artwork going on. You can literally see it destroying the land in the way like it attacks. It plows its tentacles through the ground and then uprooting it, probably trying to catch its prey. And like the flavor text says, it destroys the terrain in the process. Thrive. For 1 in green, put a +1/+1 counter on each of X target creatures. We wait and watch, and as we prepare for war, we grow strong. I use this in my Spikes decks, because Spikes rely 100% on +1/+1 counters. Forgot about this card. Trenching Steed, 4 mana for a 2/3 rebel. Sacrifice the land, the steed gets +3 toughness until end of turn. The Keldons took several of the steeds as trophies of war. They'd never seen such a light beast stand so firm. That's a horse? I guess it's a horse, but it has ears. I'm dumb. I'm like, horses don't have ears. Of course they have ears. Uh, but I never thought when I saw this card, even back in the day, I never thought it was a horse. I thought it looked more like a para a Paraceratherium or some sort of like giraffe mount beast or like those things from Star Wars. I never thought this to be a horse, but now that I look at it, I can see that it is a horse. And I am more embarrassed than I was when trying to say homunculus. Troubled Healer, 3 mana 1/2 cleric. Sacrifice a land, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn. Which is worth Which is worse, nothing to defend or no one to defend it? Let's see. I would say nothing to defend is probably worse. Because if you have nothing to defend, then you have no problems. Troublesome Spirit. 4 mana for a 3/4 spirit. That's flying. At the end of your turn, tap all lands you control. As erratic and turbulent as a summer squall. Man, that's crap. Verdant Field, a green enchant land, has tap target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Jor-El tends the land so that the land will tend to the beasts. Veteran Brawlers. Remember this card. 2 mana for 4/4. They have the can't attack if the defending player doesn't control an untapped land. Can't block if you control an untapped land. Death awaits them on both fronts. I think they're really good though, even though they have that situational drawback. If you cast them on the second turn, that means most of the time your opponent is going to be tapped out in the first 3 turns of the game. Because usually you're going to play your turn 1 spell if you have one. If not, then you'll play your turn 2 spell, usually for 2 mana. And that's just the usual pattern of the game. If you have a land, play the land, then you play that spell, unless it's like a removal spell, because most removal spells you normally don't tap out for. The good ones, anyway. So, Veteran Brawlers did win me some games. I think Jameson had them at one point. But you're always guaranteed to block with them. You just have to, you yourself, make sure that you don't have any untapped lands. And 2 mana for a 4/4 blocker with no other drawback other than having to make sure the lands are tapped, I think is worth it 100%. You didn't have them? Okay, then I must have been the only one who had them. I thought you might have. Ventara Elephant. 5 mana for a 4/3 elephant with trample. The artwork is amazing. This is a badass looking elephant. Never mind. I don't know if it's a badass looking elephant. I don't see its trunk. Did they cut off its trunk? Trained with the aid of Mystic Magic, they became uneasy in its absence. They become uneasy in its absence. Any player can pay 3 mana for the elephant to lose trample until end of turn. Yeah, this elephant has no trunk. I was praising how cool it looks, but now I just realized it doesn't have a trunk. Or if it did, it's just really stunted. It like ends right here. It's weird. Never noticed that, and I've seen the card many times. Ventara Snapper, 2 mana 2/2. Cannot be the target of spells or abilities as long as you don't have any untapped lands. The Snapper is still when all else moves, and strikes when all are dozing. I don't know if this is the ground or if this turtle is climbing a tree, but this looks like an alligator snapping turtle. And I've never seen a turtle climb a tree. That would be funny though. I'm actually kind of surprised there are no tree climbing turtles, just because of how versatile wildlife is. I'm getting off track now. Vitalizing Wind, 9 mana. Creatures you control get +7/+7 until end of turn. The 5th Wind of Ascension is Exalter, fulfilling Keld's destiny. The best deck to use these in Elves, because Elves can make a lot of mana really quick, and then they can make their numbers and overwhelm the battlefield. Then cast Vitalizing Wind, make them all threats, even a 1/1 becoming an 8/8. 3 of them go through, that's 24 damage right there, at least. Wall of Vipers, 3 mana for a 2/4. This is Nightmare Fuel if you're afraid of snakes. Pay 3, destroy Wall of Vipers. Pay 3, destroy Wall of Vipers and target creature that it is blocking. Any player may play this ability. What wall can never be climbed, but is always scaled? Nakaya Riddle. Get it? Because snakes have scales. Well of Discovery, 6 mana artifact. At the end of your turn, if you don't control any untapped lands, draw a card. When you have given everything, then you are capable of anything. Well, Inscription. Well, that is some logic right there. Well of Life, pay 4. At the end of your turn, if you control no untapped lands, you gain 2 life. When you have given everything, then you have everything to gain. That's almost just like Well of Discovery. I like Well of Life way better than Well of Discovery. It costs less to cast. The 2 life a turn is neat, and it's almost guaranteed if you tap out. Whip Sergeant, 3 mana for a 2/1 soldier. Pay a red, target creature gains haste until end of turn. Could give itself haste. Keldon soldiers learn to move faster than the whip. Whip Stitch Zombie, 2 mana for a 2/2 zombie. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay a black mana. Pity the Tailor. Yeah, this thing ain't wearing any clothes. It's just a mismatch ensemble of flesh and bones. It even has, for a chin, it has somebody's jawline. For his chin, he's got teeth poking out of it. That's pretty ingenious for undead artwork. Wild Might. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. That creature gets an additional +4/+4 until end of turn, unless that player pays 2. The hunted can become the fiercest hunters. I guess these mongrels were hunting this rat, but then the rat grew in size, and now they might be the ones eaten by the rat. Wind Scouter, 4 mana, 3/3 ship with flying. When Wind Scouter attacks or blocks, return it to its owner's hand at end of combat. These nimble ships were designed for hit and run tactics. It changed into a human scout. I guess ship's not a creature type anymore. Last page. Wingstorm. Wingstorm deals X damage to each player, where X is twice the number of creatures with flying that player controls. 1,000 wings beating as one can choke the sky itself. Here we have a beetle, a bat, a bird, a roach, a drake, a butterfly, another bird. I've never really seen this card used. Winter Moon Mesa. Winter Moon Mesa comes into play tap. You can tap it for a colorless. You can pay 2, tap it, and sacrifice it to tap 2 target lands. Not worth it in my opinion. Dark is light and day is night when the winter moon shines. Withdraw. For 2 blue, return target creature to its owner's hand. Then return another target creature to its owner's hand unless its controller pays 1. We outnumber them. Charge, charge. Hey, where'd you guys go? Retreat, retreat. I love this card because you get to target 2 creatures, essentially for only 2 blue. If your opponent's tapped out early game, this will wreck your opponent because then they don't have a field anymore. For just 2 blue mana, just imagine if this was like if Boomerang for 2 blue says return target permanent to its owner's hand. If there was a creature removal for 2 blue that says return 2 target creatures to owner's hand, I think that would be the best return target creature card in the entirety of Magic. So it has to have this restrict drawback of its control may pay 1 to stop the second creature from going back. But like I said, early game when most people tap out, I would to this day I would still use withdraw in a blue deck if I needed some sort of bounce spell. And I think this is the last card for today. The Zarapa Minotaur, 4 mana for a 3/3 Minotaur with first strike. He doesn't look like he's in a good mood. Pay 2, he loses first strike until end of turn. Any player may play this ability. There's no difference between bone and crystal when it's piercing your throat. I guess he might have lost his horns, and now they're growing back as crystals or something. And that is the last part, as I stated. Thus ends the prophecy. You're the chosen one. Spore Frog, we are going to close with you. So, what did you guys think about Prophecy? Do you agree that it was definitely one of the worst sets in Magic overall? Yep, the set was about tapped and untapped lands matters. They had the spell shapers, they had a lot of enchantments. That was their gimmick, but as like I had said earlier, even the developers admitted that the set kind of just did not fit what Mercadian Masks and Nemesis were doing. It was very underwhelming. It only had a key selection of great cards. It is funny though that like Ristic Study came out of this, Spore Frog, Avatar. Why can I not say it? Avatar Woe, Avatar Woe. Um, it still had some good cards in the set, but I do agree with the community. The set was very, very lackluster. Out of a pack that you open, you were lucky to get one or two good cards, and the rest was probably trash. Well, next week, we will be going into, I believe, the invasion block. This is where the Phyrexians have started their first full-scale invasion into Dominaria. They were able to um, use the Portals of Wrath, and I'll get to more on that story. And all the characters we have talked about, from Urza, Johora, Teferi, um, Gerard, Karn, Tarngarth, Hannah, Captain Sisay, Crovax, Urtai, Squee. We'll see what happens to them and who survives the upcoming invasion. But until then, our prophecy has been fulfilled. I'll catch you guys later. You have a great night.